training session is going to cover part 2 of the MIOSHA standard masonry wall bracing. So all employees who enter a restricted zone must receive training and they must identify hazards associated with masonry walls. The restricted zone is going to be the height of the wall plus 4 foot. So any masonry structure over 8 foot, employees need to be trained in unstable wall condition. And subcontractors are required to train their employees as well. What is a restricted zone? So it is any wall that's over 8 foot is declared unstable, and there should be signage in place identifying there is a restricted zone and an unstable masonry wall. The zone must be the height of the wall plus 4 foot, plus 4 foot out from the end. So if the wall is 10 foot, the zone must be at 14 foot around that entire masonry structure. And this zone is going to remain in place till the masonry wall meets its final lateral structural support. Typically this is when the bar joist is tied in and the decking's in place, or maybe the dock's plank is set and grouted. But this information will come from the masonry contractor letting us know this wall is stable. Here is an example of a zone. So it's got proper signage on the wall, and then the height of the wall plus 4 foot out periodically along the masonry structure. These signages will identify and let subcontractors as well as our employees know that this wall is unstable. There's 2 key points to the masonry unstable wall, and that's going to be the initial period. The initial period is the first 24 hours of the wall being laid, so a green wall. At that point, at 20 miles an hour, you'll have to evacuate that zone. So once the wind speed reaches that, all work operations must cease, and you must evacuate that restricted zone of that masonry wall. The next period is going to be the intermediate period, and that is after 24 hours. So after the wall has cured and it's been laid, the wind speed jumps up to 35 miles an hour. So at that point, you must evacuate the zone at 35 miles an hour wind speed. Who is responsible for monitoring the wind? Those contractors working in the zone. So, for example, if there's 4 contractors, there must be 4 different wind monitoring devices in that zone. Okay, it can't be just the general contractor, it can't be just the masons. Each contractor must have their own device. Wall bracing designs for masonry wall must be designed by a qualified person. There's also 2 books MIOSHA recommends that you can use for that design. And again, this information will come from the masonry contractor. Other hazards, power lines. All scaffolding masonry walls cannot be no closer than 10 foot to an energized power line, determining the voltage of that power line. Next is going to be excavations. It's going to be a qualified person's decision to dig next to any masonry wall because possible undermining, weakening the footing, that could cause a possible collapse of that masonry. That's this training session over part 2 masonry walls, and stay safe.